All right, welcome everyone to Words of the Wise. Today I have Chief Coleman from Hillsborough PD. He has 35 years experience in law enforcement. Really looking forward to having a conversation. So welcome, Chief Coleman. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me, Paige. I'm excited to talk to you.
Of course, I am too. We talked a few days ago, and I really like your approach to wellness. So I'm really looking forward to sharing that with our listeners. You've been in this career for 35 years, and when we talked offline, you said that you never wanted to be a police officer. What is that all about? How did you get into this profession, and what changed your mind? What got you into it 35 years ago?
Yeah, it really didn't cross my mind when I was growing up, and even in my teenage years where I was starting to think about what kind of career I might like. I think some of that has to do with my stepfather was in the military,
Mm.
so I definitely knew after that, I didn't want to be in the military. I love the military. I love people who served. But I also felt like we kind of served because we moved all over the world and
Mm.
um, we were always the new kids at school. So I think maybe it was the uniform thing. I saw myself when I was getting ready to go to college, uh, going into pre-med like a lot of people do.
Yeah.
Turns out that I wasn't as competitive as I needed to be to further that. But yeah, I didn't grow up thinking I was going to be a police officer or having it cross my mind.
And here you are, 35 years later.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
You know, it's so funny, and I've never shared this before, but I used to want to be a doctor when I was a kid. Like when I was little, I was like, I want to be a doctor. And I used to watch like all the shows, and then I realized really early that I faint at the sight of blood. And I was like, well,
Yeah.
that's it. That's not going to be for me.
Yeah.
But you decided to step into law enforcement, and it's been now 35 years, and I know that things change over time. And I was wondering, maybe you could share the best piece of advice or the greatest lesson that you've learned throughout your career.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I know I got a lot of advice out of the gate, and it was really about like how not to lose your job,
Mm.
what to stay away from, and that. But I think what the kind of advice we should be giving nowadays is, how can people have longevity in
Yeah.
this career? And it's about, finding the satisfaction and the reward in it, being able to exit with um, without any kind of without feeling either used up or bitter about it. And I think what I would tell people is think about that, think about making it a career because there's a lot of reward in this job and being a police officer, a lot of opportunity to help people. I also believe that we tend to focus on maybe criticism of policing, but I have always encountered that's a small fraction of people who, when they need the police, that's their feeling afterwards. I think we have an enormous amount of support out there. It's not hard to find, and so you'll get not only a paycheck uh, but you'll get a lot of positive reinforcement from people that kind of it's kept me going. I guess, to boil that all down to a piece of advice is like listen when you hear the positive,
Mm.
understand and embrace when something good's happening to you, like making lifelong friendships with your coworkers, knowing that you can provide for your family because you're in a career that nowadays, maybe not when I started, but nowadays pays pretty well, has great benefits, and then finally, just understand that you are going to affect people's lives, and there are going to be people that come back and thank you or remember of all the hundreds and thousands of contacts you have. There are probably, some people out there that only deal with the police once or twice in their life. And if you've done something, they are often going to view what you did for them as something amazing and maybe even life changing.
I love that. And I agree with you. I think that negativity is often louder than the positivity in the world or, in your career, your life. And it is easy to fall into fixating on all the bad stuff. And I think that if you can remind yourself of the good things, even if it's small things, and that actually there's science to it. It actually rewires your brain to be able to see more good things in the world. The more you try to focus and find them, the more you're going to see of them. And if you have that attitude of, yes, there are hard things. Yes, there are going to be really traumatic and stressful and terrible things, there are also good things. And sometimes you have to maybe search really hard for them, but the more you look for them, the more you're going to see them. And it does help with your mental wellness long term, and it helps to build that mental resiliency. So I really, really like that. And I also agree with you that you you really don't know how you can impact someone's life. And I I've had experiences like that where someone's come up to me and they're like, "Man, like you taught my academy class in 2018 and like I love it and now I do this with my family and that's a part of my home wellness and it's brought us closer together." And I'm like, "I was just doing my job.
Yeah.
I was just teaching a class at an academy, like not really thinking that people were that into it at the time, because this was 2018. And so it was a different environment. And he's like, yeah, like it's just changed my whole life. And like, this is what we do. And I think that you have so much more ability to inspire people than maybe you realize.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's worth more than your paycheck. I know that. It's what keeps you going and makes you sometimes think you can even do more and do better.
Yeah.
It's a great motivator to positive feedback.
100%. And I know that you said this before. You were like, yeah, like maybe, things were different when I started. And, I'm sure wellness looked very different too, and the resources that were available. How did this job impact your personal wellness over time? And what were some of the things that maybe you did to help you through that?
Yeah, I think I definitely some real phases in my career, not a lot of them, just very definitive things where I remember when I got in, it was 1990. And when I got in, I was testing against almost 1,000 people for 35 positions
Hmm.
at the Salt Lake City Police Department. Pretty surprised when I actually was selected, and it was kind of on a whim. And then so luckily now as I look back, I made the decision. Well, okay, yeah, they think I can do this. I'll do it too. But I do remember my training, my basic training, and then I moved through the training department as a trainer and even a leader of it at Salt Lake City as a commander. And I think that first many years, maybe first couple of decades of my career, it was all about proving that you could do the job. And that was mostly physical and then just aptitude as far as understanding the law and understanding how to be safe when you do the job. Um, understanding policies and procedures. That's how you were assessed by both your peers and your department. And in a way, the one thing that I think I hear a lot of people, including myself, sometimes say, kind of a throwaway statement, we're smarter about how we approach well-being and that nowadays. We're not necessarily smarter than the people that had that feeling or that approach many years ago. I think really we, have learned a lot from people coming home from wars over the last 20 years. We recruited heavily people who were in the service and returning from service and police work. And I think we learned from them that there there's mental and emotional and psychological challenges to some of the experiences that we share both in that theater, but in just some of the very difficult things we do and see in this job. And in my mind, that's when at least I and others slowly started to understand that, hey, these folks are among us, and maybe they're seeing things in us that we wouldn't have seen otherwise. And they're bringing ideas as they struggle, or they see the folks that they serve with struggle. And I feel I can't tell you, the day I think it happened over many years, but there was this feeling that let's let's do the physical stuff to help you survive this job, not just out on the street, hour by hour, day by day, but years, and help you survive it when you're done with it. And also let's understand that the mind and the body work together. If either one of them fail, the other one's going to be taken down by it. So we really have to address both. And just as they can take each other down, I think strength in body or strength in mind is going to make it more likely that other part of you is lifted up by that.
Yeah, and I loved a few things that you said that I wanted to kind of touch on. So I think that as humans, as we struggle, we don't want other people to have to experience those things too, especially if we care about those people. So if it's your family, your team, your organization, as you struggle, there's learning through that, and as an individual, at least for me, like when I've been in my hardest times, like I wouldn't wish that on anybody, like I don't want anyone to have to go through that. And especially if it's people that I care about or people who look up to me, I'm like, hey, learn from me, kid, or, like learn from my mistakes, learn from me, because you want the next generation, or the people who are coming up behind you, or the people who you care about, to be better, do better. And I also think that as an individual, you learn from people what not to do. And, so I think there's two sides of it. It's like as an individual, like you want people to learn from you what not to do. And then you also, as an individual, want to learn from the people above you of like not what not to do. And so you learn
Mhm.
from mistakes. And um, I agree with you that the mind and body are so closely intertwined. And I think that we have to become more accepting of the mind um, being being like safety training almost. It's like you train your body for safety and for job performance. How can you also train your mind in that way too? And there's lots of different ways you can do that, and you can look at it from two different perspectives, of more of like a stress management perspective, but also a mental resiliency perspective. And if you can look at the mind and the body as both needing training and strengthening over time, then I think that it becomes less taboo. It becomes less of this like I'm weak or I'm broken, or, whatever stigma it is when it comes to the mental side of it. And it's like, no, like I have to have both operating on, full speed to be able to perform my best.
Yeah, I really like what you said there. It made me think back to some of my experiences as a very young police officer, my first few years out there. And I think that training of the mind, particularly, that's not basic training. That's a high level of training to really really guard yourself against things that might happen to you in this job, both for your in the long term and in the immediate term. And it reminded me of like when I always remember when I was first couple of years as a police officer, when I knew I was about to get in a fight, I could feel my kneecap twitching in my leg,
Mm.
and I'm like, hey, can my partners, can the other person see, my leg twitching, and wondering if that was some sort of sign of weakness. I think I understood at the time it was a physiological reaction. But to take that to the next level, as I worked longer in police work, that went away. And, then you're starting to think, well, am I not as prepared as I used to be? Have I had too many almost good outcomes, or things that I thought were about to happen to me that actually didn't play out that way? And now am I becoming immune to those warning signs? And I think the higher level of understanding and training is finding that place between there. When you're talking about performance as a law enforcement officer, for example, and that's translatable to all kinds of industries or careers, but I think it's a higher level of training. You can fall into a trap either way. And so there's definitely a connection. Your personal well-being, not only how you feel away from the job, but staying out of danger, that kind of well-being, it's incredibly important.
I like that. I like that like statement of mental training as a high level of training. And I think if you start, I mean, it's all a mental shift, right? It's a mental framing of what it is. And if you start thinking it in that terms, then it's like this is elite performance training. Like that's what we're doing. We're trying to get at the highest level that we can physically, mentally, emotionally. I really, really like that statement. I wanted to circle back a little bit or like rewind a little bit. So you started at so you spent a large amount of time in Salt Lake City. Um,
25 years.
25 years. And then now at Hillsborough, you've been here for about 5 years.
10 years, 5 years as a deputy chief and 5 years as a chief.
Got it. And when you entered into the chief role, it was 2020-ish.
Hmm.
So it was right around COVID, and we all know what kind of happened around there. Can you maybe describe what that was like and some of the things that were happening organizationally, some of the challenges, and maybe how that's changed you or some of the things that you've learned as a leader during that time.
Yeah, I feel like I was really fortunate. Hillsborough's is a uh, it's in the Portland metro region, and it's the last big city before you are on your way to the Oregon coast, heading west. It's 110,000 people, and so we see just about everything out here. It's a good community to be a police officer in. We have a lot of support, and although we see everything, it's we don't have an overwhelming amount of crime, for instance. But I was really lucky when I came here because I was able to serve as a deputy chief for 5 years. So I wasn't the ultimate decision maker in most circumstances. I could sit back and learn about the department and learn the people. And one of the things I learned really early was policing is not the same everywhere. The attitudes towards it, the things that we concentrated on in Salt Lake City, um, are different than the things maybe we concentrate on in Hillsborough. We're in, different judicial circuits and so on and so on. I even remember being on a call early when I was here, and the officers like, you were really uncomfortable with the way we handled that, weren't you? And I'm like, yeah, but I get why you did it that way. It's just not the way I did it where I come from. So I had that 5 year kind of acclimatization period to the department. And then the first time I took a vacation, which was like 3 months later, George Floyd happened.
Mm.
So my deputy chief was calling me on the phone, letting me know kind of how our department was reacting to it, how our community was. And that was a very tough time as far as police reform, because I waged some battles with some folks here outside of the department that were wanting to have a hand in how we were reformed. And I just feel like there was a lot of generalization happening.
Mm.
And I really do feel like we have a unique department, a unique approach, and our long-term positive relationship with the community wasn't couldn't be encapsulated by something that happened halfway across the country. So we worked hard on that, and then trying to keep our people's spirits up and helping them see that we were going to hang on to our identity because
Mhm.
we felt good about it. We weren't afraid to call ourselves the police. And then finally, moving into COVID, um, and police reform did not disappear during COVID. It continued. So you layer that up on top of everything, and you have one of the everybody else is staying at home. You don't get that option. You're a police officer. You're showing up for work, and it's not just comparing yourselves to others. It's like you're more likely to get exposed to sickness. One person on your shift gets sick, and pretty soon everybody's being sent home
Mm.
for weeks at a time, and then the burden. we saw that. I'm sure, like a lot of my friends and colleagues out there as police leaders, you begin to really, tying it back to well-being. It's not just are you going to get sick or not, it's like, are we running you ragged? What toll is this going to have long term on you? It's not just, oh yeah, go home and get some extra sleep and then come back. It's like, is this going to change your attitude towards police work, or are we even doing physical damage to you by making you do certain things? So it was. I like to tell folks I'm trying to get the state of Oregon to give me 10 years service credit for those 2 years. So far, the answer is no, but I'm sure a lot of my folks here feel the same way.
Yeah, I mean, what a tough time to be entering into a new role and, kind of being thrown into the den, you know. So I wanted to ask you because you said a couple times that you guys had a great community and you had worked really hard before all of that had happened to have that trust and that communication with the community and how important do you think that is to have community support and what are some of the things that you've done to maintain that?
It means everything, Paige. It's our best recruiting tool right now, just frankly. Um, People who are interested in coming and working here in Hillsborough, they do their homework nowadays. They know that police departments are competitive with one another. There aren't 1,000 people showing up to be hired nowadays. It's
Yeah.
a couple dozen, and maybe maybe if you're lucky, a couple hundred. So they're doing their research, and one of the things that has really paid dividends for us is that our elected officials here, and then we have a city manager is our form of government here. So we have people that aren't subject to election and serve for a long time. They've looked at, you know, they look at council meetings, they look at proclamations, um, they look at the telltale signs of are they going to get support or not. They In Oregon, we have a system where the voters can approve extra funding for public safety and things like libraries and that. And ours has always been approved by our voters and approved by a wide margin. So those are the things that people look at when they're trying to get into this career. I think again, going back to the psychological aspects of the job is if you're I've never worked in a city where I felt like I was at odds with the community. Maybe certain members of the community, certainly, but not the community at large. I can't imagine that type of policing. I feel really lucky that I haven't had to work through that. We know it exists. So I like to remind myself, I have a pretty great boss, and I like to remind myself I don't go around telling my people they have a pretty great boss. That's up to them to decide that. But I like to remind people like this is a great place to be a police officer. It doesn't get much better than this. And the one thing I would add to that, I am not by any means saying there's no accountability here, though, because that's important. Um, the trust comes with high expectations on
Yeah.
who we hire, how we do our job, how we react to things that happen in the broader um, political and cultural environment.
Well, trust is earned. And we know that, right? It's just, and, we spoke a little offline, and, I told you it's not lost on me that you're here today trusting me to be on this podcast. And I think that trust is earned and it can be taken away. And so if you are holding yourself at a high standard and, and doing a good job, then it seems like that'll maintain. So,
Yeah.
it takes effort to keep trust. And I'm glad that you have a community that supports you guys because I do think that that plays into mental health, and like you said, there are agencies out there that do not have that, and it's tough. From what I hear, it's really hard on their officers to go out there and have to experience that every day, and feel unappreciated and at odds with the community. So I know that that's a component of wellness, and I actually wanted to share a story with you because I thought this was so interesting and it's on topic. I From what I understand, you're exactly on point that new officers aren't necessarily looking for the highest paying job. They're looking for community. They're looking for what the agency is going to do to support them in their wellness and, a place to raise their family. And there's a lot of different things that come into play, and they value their time off and how they're going to be treated by the organization. And I work with an agency, and they were doing a job fair, and they decided that because they have a robust wellness program. And so they're like, well, we're going to highlight those things. We're going to highlight our community. We're going to highlight our wellness program. And they had a line like wrapped around the corner compared to everyone else because they were like, we're going to highlight these other unique things that we're doing and the effort that we're putting into our people. And all the new recruits, like they couldn't even get to all of them because they were so interested in what is that? Like that sounds like a place that I want to work. And I think that that's really kind of cool. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how you feel about that, but I think that's cool that there's young officers that are coming in already prioritizing their wellness and how they're going to have a long career within an organization that takes care of themselves or takes
I,
care of them.
yeah, absolutely. I think it's one of those cases where, um, if you are one of the places that can realize that that's happening and then adapt to it, you're outpacing everybody else. There, we just get in habits of like go to a job fair or hand out flyers or have a little advertisement on the side of your police car, and that'll help recruiting. It's those things may have worked in the past. They don't work now. You got to get a message out there about what's really going on in your police department. We've leaned into social media to show our folks doing their jobs and hopefully making an impact in the community, but also being able to articulate why they like being a police officer, and it makes a big difference for us. And I don't think we're the best at it, but I do think we realize constantly we can get better at it. So that's where we're making our progress is, hey, we've got room for improvement. We're not afraid to think outside the box.
Yeah. Well, and there's agencies that are duking it out. Everyone's fighting for the best people. And so if you have something that makes you unique and a differentiator, I think it's good to showcase that because that is gonna, maybe be the one thing that gets that, new hire in the door. So I know that in speaking to you offline, you're really focused on proactive wellness. You're really focused on, implementing programming that's not a one size fits all. Can you maybe explain um, your thought process on building a wellness program and some of the things that you're currently doing organizationally?
Yeah, I when we were talking before, I shared with you that I always thought I was doing wellness the right way. It wasn't called that before, just, staying in shape, or whatever the case may be. And when I was in my mid 40s, I was going to go to some specialized training where I needed to have a physical before I went. And it's not like hey, you're going to play soccer physical, meaning, I know there's much higher levels of soccer where you have to have good physicals, but you're gonna go try out for the soccer team in the youth league, and it's 15 minutes. I had to have blood tests. I had to get hooked up to an EKG and all of this, and so I think I'm doing great. I play basketball 3 times a week. I run and I go in and I find out I'm early hypertensive. And even more scary, I have a latent bacterial infection
Mm.
going on in my body. So it wasn't presenting, but it was there, and it could present at any moment. And my doctor and I kind of narrowed it down to my assignment at the time, which was to work in drug interdiction and work a lot with folks that were living on the streets, addicted to drugs, and people from foreign countries where they might have brought something with them. So definitely related to the job. And so my doctor told me some of the classic things. He's like, don't eat anything that comes in aluminum or plastic. Make your own meals and, spend more time in the produce section, Jim. And
Mhm.
then, I went on an 18-month regimen of a really powerful antibiotic to get the bacterial infection out of my body. I felt great. I had no idea any of this was going on inside of me. And that's when I realized that, hey, not only could things be happening quietly? Um, some, I wouldn't blame my pre-hypertension on the job. I guess I could a little bit. That's probably all the canned soup I ate, really. They didn't tell me to eat canned soup. Uh, but the other part, yeah, directly. And I had to adapt what I've been doing all that time as well to kind of take care of those things. And age does that to you. But more to your point, maybe just over the years, I've seen a lot of times where there's a lot of excitement and well-placed excitement when people are introduced to a new approach to well-being, physically and more mental health and psychologically now. But particularly in the physical well-being realm, or mind or body related, and our enthusiasm for that, and then if you can get the right people enthusiastic about it, um, we can really kind of, in my mind, only Jim's personal opinion, like go all in on it
Mhm.
and expect everybody else to feel the same way about it, or even with all of our different body types, or and definitely some of it's gender related and all that, but expect that that's going to be good for everybody because it was good for you. It makes you feel better. You saw results. Everybody should do it. And I've just seen so many of those come and pass, and not necessarily fail, just fall out of fashion, or they're not something most people can stick with, because it's not. I know what motivates me to engage in fitness even to this day, but I know it's different than a lot of people. I'm okay being alone. I'm okay doing my workouts by myself. Other people have to have that community feeling, and so I I think we have to give people options,
Mhm.
and try and just create the spaces and the opportunities, so that would be time, um, mostly in that sense, to find their thing, or engage in the thing that they've already found that works for them. So I think that that's the way most police departments do it nowadays. But I still see, we're getting ready to build a headquarters, and I still see places as I go around, to visit and see what they did, that are still, in my mind, like going down a very narrow physical fitness road.
Mhm.
And if that doesn't work for you, you're going to have to go somewhere else, or more likely, because we do know when we offer time on duty that people are more likely to take advantage of that,
Yeah.
that it misses the mark.
Yeah. Well, and to kind of just encapsulate everything that you said, like one, I think that we take our health for granted. Like there's been times in my life where, I've had not the same experience, but similar experience where you're like, yeah, I feel good. And then you're just like hit with something really hard and you're like, whoa, okay, hold on. Like, and you realize that there's like a mortality to this thing, right? Like, and I think that when it comes to like motivation for things, and I hate using that word because I think motivation is so fleeting, and everyone is always like, well, I'll do it when I'm motivated, or I don't feel motivated, or and so to me, I think dedication and consistency is way superior than motivation. But in terms of like taking action and being proactive with your wellness, I think that you have to ask ourselves, like, what is the goal here? Like, what is, and I say this all the time, like, what is the why? What is the goal here? You know, and I think that's it, it speaks to what you said, where everyone is going to have different goals and different motivators. I put that in quotes, you know, and different reasons why wellness is important to them. And then there's going to be different resources that they gravitate towards. And I completely agree with you. It's not a one size fits all. And I, I've said this before, but I used to call it the charcuterie board. And then I was at a wellness conference and someone came up to me and they're like, Paige, charcuterie board is too hard to say. These first responders can't say charcuterie board. And I was like, I don't know if that's true, but it was a joke, you know? And they're like, you got to
Uh,
say the buffet. I'm like, okay, I'll say the buffet, whatever works for you. Like, but I do think that it's that line of thinking. And I think you're exactly right. And I think that makes a good leader if you're like, you know what? Just because this works for me, it might not work for someone else. And just because it doesn't work for me, doesn't mean that it's not going to work for somebody else. And having that open mind of like, okay, how can we have lots of different options so that everybody feels like there's something for them so that, you know, they can feel more quote unquote motivated to do those things. I also think, and this is one of my peeves, and we're going to be like super honest on here, but if there's any program that comes up to you guys and says 100% of your people are going to do this, that is a lie. That is not true. There's one organization that I know of where 100% of their people go to a therapist, which I thought was incredible. Like, that is amazing. And it's not mandated. Um, but generally speaking, when it comes to like wellness programming or, you know, different types of workouts or whatever, 100% of your people are never going to do one singular thing. So I do think that you have to have options. It's like out of necessity. So I love everything that you said, and I'm completely on board with that.
that makes me feel good. So,
I know that you're also you're trying to consider the space that you're creating within your organization so that it's a place that people like want to be. What is your like theory on that?
yeah, and I would say it's developing and it's been kind of in hyper development the last year, 2 years because we're building a new headquarters for our police department, and it's the first time in 150 years that the police department will have something built specifically for policing.
Mm.
It's pretty exciting. And you know, it's funny how life works and these kind of things work. We have we have a economically thriving city here. So pieces of property are at a premium, and the city would much rather frankly build, you know, sell it to a company that's going to build something that will offer employment to people than to build a public facility like a police department. So, you know, initially the piece of property that we were offered to build our new headquarters on, it's like, wow, that's where you want to put us. It had wetlands and a floodplain running right through the middle of it. Luckily for us, we have just enough room on one side of that to build our new headquarters. But unlike a lot of places where police departments are built, you know, very geographically central to the community they're serving, which is usually like in a downtown area or something like that. You know, you're boxed in by buildings and apartments and other things, maybe other civic buildings. We're going to be out away from that, and we're going we don't have a choice. We have to preserve the wetland. So, but when you start thinking about it, it's like, man, we got a great view. We got a great connection with just some things that help uh, get your mind off of, you know, your task at the time, maybe troubles. We're even thinking about it as a, hey, you know, is there an opportunity here to make somebody who otherwise would be very intimidated to come to the police department and interact with us, report a crime, or even come to the police department for a meeting, maybe unrelated to policing, but just we've offered it up as a community meeting uh, to give a completely different feel about what a police department is about. But certainly what I find most exciting is you know, we have a great climate here. People think it rains all the time. It does rain, but really very temperate as far as the temperatures go, not real extreme for that many days in the year. So we're trying to open up interior spaces to the outside
Mm.
for our people's well-being as well. Have Speaking of, you know, people coming in trying to build trauma-informed interview rooms and keep those ideas in line. And we know that that's transferable to our folks. That you know, human beings react to each other's um, you know, physiological when it's anxiety filled or when there's confrontation. And you know, we know that like a trauma informed interview room is going to work in two directions for our folks, making their job easier, and for those that might come in here and have to tell us a very difficult story. Spaces within the building where you can decompress
Mhm.
and just so we have a great opportunity here that I'm trying to take advantage of both inside and outside, having the building work for those that work in it or those that need to use it. And you know, one more plug for
Yeah.
any officer that's looking to change departments out there is our city, you know, really it's employee well-being is in our five core values for the building. Uh, I, and I think it's the top one actually, not just with me, but with the city. So very excited about the opportunity we have there.
I love that. And I agree with you that environment matters. It really does. And I know that there's a lot of agencies out there that are really trying to transform the space that they have. And, you know, obviously if you have the opportunity to move into a brand new building, that's ideal. But I know some agencies who have had really great success in some of the things that you're saying where maybe they didn't have, you know, a brand new building, but they were able to transform the space that they had. And it's the same concept, you know, they were like, how can we make this feel less scary, you know, less dingy and dark, and how can we create more zen, you know, I'll put that in quotes too. We could just say tactically zen and people will be on board with it. But
Yes.
they were saying that they had really really good success with this was I'm going to give a shout out to Chief Borges. He's in California, but he was saying that they created a space in their lobby that had you know, a waterfall feature and, you know,
Mhm.
trying to, and like music playing that, like almost like you would have at a spa. And he said that he noticed when people would come in heated, that they would sit down and I think they had aromatherapy, you know, kind of going and they would be like, oh, and they'd be more calm. And then a similar idea to yours is, you know, having that space, that, um, room for interviews where it didn't feel so sterile. And it was because he had heard from some victims' experience of, um, you know, being in that room, in that like interrogation room, and them having a really hard time with that. And so I love those ideas of not only how can we help our people so that this space is a place that you want to be and it's an environment that feels good, and you have rooms to decompress, you have, you know, rooms to work out that open up to the exterior, if you know, but then also like how can we help our community and our victims to be able to have a space where you know, you can feel safe and comfortable.
Yeah, yeah. I love the idea because uh, not everybody has the opportunity that we have, and even we're going to be in our building for a couple more years. These things take time to do, so you can't just be like, "Oh, hey, you know, we're not going to do anything in the meantime." So we're constantly, you know, trying to navigate our facilities people to, hey, you know, they good people, but they consistently tell me like, well, you're not going to be in this building in 2 years, so why would you want to do this, that, or the other? It's like, 2 years is a long time when you're
Yeah.
doing this kind of work.
Yeah.
So even if it's a little thing, you know, there's no time like the present to do the right time, the right thing.
Yeah, and it goes back to we talked about about being proactive and um, did you think that 35 years ago when you started in this career that we'd be having a conversation like this and talking about like Zen dens and aromatherapy in the lobby and stuff? I mean, I just think that, I mean, obviously I haven't been in this space as long as you. I've only been in this space for 8 years, but I think that there has been great strides in the direction of wellness, and I'm really excited to see what happens. I think that the creativity level is really increasing and there's the awareness and the focus on it. So I'm really excited to see what's next.
Yeah, I would hope that um, I remember a time when, there was this discussion that police departments need to become more like businesses, and there are a lot of, metrics out of it and that. And I think we are in an age now where police departments need to be more like, I don't know what you would, I haven't heard it. I don't know what you would call it, but police departments need to, if you're going to say something like, and we say it here, and maybe it's an overused cliche, but it's like, hey, we feel like a family. Okay, well, don't run your place like a business. Run it like you care about your family members. And so, however that is, I can't put a name on it, but I couldn't have imagined. All I wanted to do was get through training and then, maybe get this assignment here or this cool thing there. I didn't have anybody telling me, "Hey, Jim, how are you?" or asking me, "How are you doing?" What, how, or just even caused me to ask myself that question. And so I think that's one of the great things we have now is, as long as it's done at the right times and in the right ways, you can't not have credibility with people and then walk around and ask them how they're doing.
Right.
So I think in a lot of ways, it's a rising tide lifts all boats. You got to pick up your game to have the credibility to ask those questions, and you've got to reach deeper inside to then have the listening skills to really listen to people when they, kind of talk around the edges of how they're doing.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's I think it's what keeps the job fresh are those challenges.
I love that statement, a rising tide lifts all boats. Maybe that's a common expression. I've never heard that, so I thought that
Oh,
was
okay.
really cool. I appreciate that. I have one final question for
Mhm.
you. Um, what words of wisdom would you give to someone who is earlier in their career? Maybe something that you wish you would have known or something that's helped you along the way.
Yeah, if it's okay, could I know you concentrate on leadership a lot too. If I could just mention it from like a leadership perspective.
Sure, please.
Um, we don't have a lot of time to be leaders. It's fleeting. You're it's I imagine it happens in other industries, but it's acute in our industry because people say it. I mean, you're the minute you walk out the door, there's somebody to take your place,
Mhm.
and people, not really gonna just completely forget about you, but your authority evaporates immediately, when you take that retirement and you walk out the door. So as a leader, I mean, I think there needs to be a sense of urgency in the time that you do have. And that urgency, it can play out two ways, or it can play out three ways. It can play out where you're just wearing people out with new ideas. I'm not saying that, and
Mhm.
new initiatives, and let's do this and that and the other. Or it could be the other way where you can just, reach your own personal goals, and then you just become a placeholder,
Mhm.
and you don't really do anything of note. There's somewhere in the middle where you can make a real difference if you just have that sense of urgency in the back of your mind, like, hey, um, I want to get us here. I want to make my mark this way. I don't. I guess in my mind, I would. It's not a competition, but I just, in some ways, the measure of success for me would be, what was it like when Jim took over? What's it like now?
Mm.
And that's a real high bar for me because it wasn't broken when I took over. I'm not stepping in and fixing something that was a wreck. So I got to work in my mind that much harder. So I would just say, hey, understand that your time to make a difference is fleeting, So take advantage of it.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you being here so much. And I love everything that you're doing. And yeah, just thank you. That's all I can say, I think, is thank you.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, Paige. I really, I'm just learning what you're doing in this space, and it's very exciting. And thank you for giving me a forum to talk about Hillsborough Police Department.
Of course. Thank you so much.